Today, we're going to perform a kind of intellectual autopsy, but not on a person. We're investigating a murder that took place not in a field, but inside the very architecture of human consciousness itself.
Yeah, we all know the story, right? But what if it isn't actually a story about a crime at all? What if it's a code, a secret map to a deep, fundamental conflict in the way we think, the way we see the world, and especially the way we talk to each other? Because the theory we're exploring today suggests that this ancient story is really about a civil war between two different modes of consciousness, one that sees the world in layers, in symbols, and another that only sees the flat, literal surface. And it's the story of how one of them was silenced.
Okay, so first things first, we have to completely reframe this crime. We're not talking about a literal murder. We're looking at a murder of meaning, something that happened in the subtext, in the very structure of the story itself.
And this quote from the source material, it really sets the stakes, doesn't it? The victim here isn't a person. It's a whole way of seeing, a capacity for perception, a way of reading the hidden meanings of the world that we might have lost.
So let's be really clear about what we're digging into. This isn't just some poetic interpretation. This is a specific framework. It's called the Abel Hypothesis, and it argues that this story is almost like a technical manual describing a massive shift in how the human mind operates. All right, so to really get this murder, we first have to identify the two opposing sides, not as people, but as two fundamental forces at play in our minds.
Okay, so this is Abel. Abel stands for what the source calls interpretive fluency. Think of it like being able to read the subtext of reality itself. It's not just hearing the words someone's saying, it's seeing the poetry, the patterns between the lines. It's understanding that one thing can mean many things all at once. It's a kind of higher bandwidth way of seeing the world.
And this, right here, this lays out the two sides perfectly. On one side you have Abel, breath, spirit, the poetic, intangible truth that's kind of hidden in plain sight. And on the other, you have Cain, the ground, literal, materialistic, totally focused on direct control and what you can see and grab. It's a battle between depth and surface. So the murder, it's that symbolic moment when the Cain way of thinking, the direct, the literal, just decides that all that ambiguity that Abel represents is a threat. It's the point where layered meaning, subtext, isn't seen as profound anymore. It's seen as inefficient, maybe even untrustworthy. It's something that needs to be stamped out. But this brings up a really tough question. Because, okay, from the inside, this layered way of speaking is fluency. It's depth. But what does it look like from the outside? To the people who aren't in on the secret.
Well, it creates this huge problem that the source calls interpretive asymmetry. Just imagine two people having a conversation. One of them is hearing the literal words, but also a whole second hidden layer of meaning, the subtext. The other person? They only hear the literal words. They both think they're having the same conversation, but they are on completely different planets.
And here's the real gut punch, the social cost. If you're the one who can't hear that hidden layer, that fluency doesn't feel deep or profound, it feels like a secret. It feels like you're being managed or maybe even lied to. And your suspicion, that's not you being paranoid. It's a totally rational response to being left out of the loop. So that brings us to this really central metaphor in the whole debate. Is this world of subtext and layered communication a locked door designed to keep people out? Or is it something else? This is the defense. The argument is that this system of meaning isn't about secrets. It's not trying to exclude anyone. It's just designed to make sure that the people who enter are ready for what's inside. The door just requires effort. It doesn't require a special key.
The term for this whole idea is developmental opacity. The meaning isn't a secret, it's just opaque, for now. I mean, you don't explain quantum physics to a 6-year-old, right? Not because you're trying to deceive them, but because they just don't have the mental framework for it yet. The idea is that some truths can actually be harmful if you hear them before you're ready.
And the perfect example of this is the whole Santa Claus story. For a kid, it's a literal man with a sleigh and reindeer. But for the adults who are in on the secret, it's a beautiful symbol of generosity, of family, of care. The literal story is just a container that holds a deeper, symbolic truth, one that's revealed only when the child is mature enough to get it.
So here's the crucial question. That whole Santa analogy, it works because it's an adult and a child. There's a clear duty of care. But what happens when you apply that same logic between two adults? It gets really dicey, really fast. I mean, who gets to decide which adult has the deeper understanding and which one is the child that needs to be shielded from the full truth?
The source argues this is a totally false comparison. Not getting what's being said at a physics conference is one thing. Being left out of a social subtext is something else entirely. In physics, the barrier is just a lack of training. But here, the barrier is a lack of context, of relationship. The outsider doesn't just feel uninformed, they feel like they're being managed without their permission.
And this brings us right to the heart of the matter. We have to face the fact that this isn't some problem with an easy fix. This is a permanent, unresolved tension baked into the very way we communicate with each other.
And then there's this last twist. What if this whole conflict isn't even between different people? The dead brother theory proposes that Cain and Abel are actually two parts of our own minds, that modern life has so prioritized the literal, data-driven Cain that we've suppressed or killed our own internal Abel, our own ability to think in symbols, to see the poetry in the world.
This line from the source just sums up the entire dilemma perfectly. That feeling of being lied to isn't always proof of a liar. Sometimes it's just the unavoidable shadow that's created when one person is speaking a language of subtext that the other person just can't hear.
And that leaves us with two final, totally irreconcilable positions. One side says that this shadow of deception is a price worth paying for deep, layered, profound meaning, and to get rid of it would be to flatten the whole world into boring literalism. The other side says, no, that shadow is a fundamental flaw in a system that excludes people, and transparency should always, always come first.
And so that's where we have to leave it. The next time you feel that gap, that sense that there's a secret language being spoken just beyond your hearing, where does the responsibility really lie? Is it on the speaker to be more direct, or is it on the listener to learn how to hear the music? That's the modern mystery this ancient story asks us to solve.